Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the moon, which is I've been fascinated with more than usual for the past 6 or 7 years. And I'm going to give you a few facts here at the beginning. So a few other facts here is the moon's gravity is not 1/6 that of Earth. It's 68%. It has a breathable atmosphere equal to about 18,000 feet here on Earth. In other words, if you would climb an 18,000-foot mountain, where you breathe there, that's the air that's on the breathable air on the moon. They also have domed cities there that have a little bit more air pressure. The other thing is, let me look here at my notes, the population of the moon is about 500 million, and they're people just like us, but they're not from Earth. They're from someplace else. The moon was constructed on Jupiter, or inside Jupiter, 38 billion years ago, and it's been all around the different solar systems doing what it does best. And it has hundreds of thousands of aliens, the little grays, living inside, and they do their abduction work from the moon. The last time the moon showed up here on Earth was about 15,000 years ago, and that's where they've been doing their abductions from. Some people say that 1 in 10 are abducted. Actually, it's every single person that is human gets abducted from the time they are born, once at 2 years old, once at 4, once at 6, once at 8, and once at 13 years old. And they're basically to see that everything is going okay, that they're growing up okay, that they all have all the latest modifications and everything is going right. So there's so many saucers up in the air now. If you could, during the daytime or during the nighttime, if you could have a switch and turn it on and make every saucer that was in the sky at any single moment turn on bright, the sky would be full. I mean, there wouldn't be any sky. It would just be total saucers. There's so many going on at all the times. The other thing is, let me see here, my notes here. I'm having a little trouble here. On the moon, there's cities, villages, lakes, rivers, mountains, just everything you can imagine. And their malls are much, much better than ours. If you went to the moon in the malls, you'd be really surprised because they're about 10 times better than we are, better than our malls. Now, the other things I'd like to mention and how I got there is Newton's universal law of gravity is wrong. His law of gravity, he believed that the density and size of an object was directly proportional to its gravitational pull, gravitational force, and it's not. It has nothing to do with it. So after he passed away, somebody else gave a equation for what they thought was the gravity pull, and that was G equals m1 times m2 over r squared. That's totally wrong. And because Einstein based his theories, both general and special, on Newton's universal law of gravity, everything that Einstein came up with is wrong. Everything is his theories, both special and general, are wrong. There's not a shred of truth in any of it, which includes the speed of light. The speed of light is not limited. It's forever. So anyway, how did I get into all this? So a few years ago, I watched a video that Richard Hoagland put out called the Moon-Mars Connection. I think it was part 2. And he showed a photo taken by the Lunar Orbiter series. I forget what the number of the photo was, but it was a oblique photo of the Sinus Medii. The Sinus Medii is right dead center of the moon, the near side that we can see. And there's a tower there, and the tower stands 6 miles high, and on top of it, there's a square, and the square is 1 mile on each side. It's huge. It's an enormous construction. That was what interested me most on his video. So I got to looking into it, and almost at the same time, I was reading a book by a remote viewer, McMonigal, and who was one of the Army remote viewers. And he was tasked one day to follow a soul from a person who had been in a traffic accident south of San Francisco. And he relates in his book, his first book, I forget what the name of it is, following this soul. And as he followed it, he's a remote viewer, as it got out of the Earth's atmosphere, it was going directly towards the moon. And so he followed it, and as he followed it, it appeared like it was getting wrapped with something. And the closer he would get to the moon, the louder this message got. And the message was, do not come any closer. This is not your place. You may not come here. And he kept on following it until the message got so loud that he was actually afraid for his life, and he broke off. But that got to me thinking there, if that soul was going directly towards the moon, maybe it was headed directly for that tower. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what started me thinking on all that. In 1993, a lady named Perry Spolter wrote a book called The Gravitational Force of the Sun. If you haven't seen the book, or if you haven't read it, you really should, because when everybody sees this book and understands what it does, you realize that everything we've been taught about gravity, the density, everything is wrong. And she proves this mathematically, that Newton was wrong, and that the correct formula for gravity is Kepler's third law. And so, realizing this, I started looking into all the things that could possibly be. And we figured out, I had Perry help me because she's really strong in mathematics, the gravity of the moon. And since it isn't based on size or density, we used the Boolean law of inverse square, and using the neutral point of 243,500 miles, it turns out the gravity of the moon is about 68% that of Earth. Now, let me make it clear that Perry Spolter does not believe that that's the true gravity of the moon. She says that was only one point, and she figured it as a three-body problem using the sun. And she said it was only one point, and it was for July 20th, 1969, which was the exact time of the alleged Apollo 11 landing on the moon. If that was true, that they would have been landing in 68% worth of gravity, which is not possible because they didn't have enough fuel. All you have to do is take a model of the shuttle and a model of the alleged Saturn V, put them together, and knowing that the shuttle only goes up about 300 miles, and then looking at alleged Saturn V-B, has, just a little bit taller. They tell us that went to the moon. Obviously, there's not enough fuel to do that, especially with the gravitational force of 68%. As far as the Saturn V, that was not a Saturn V. They never got the Saturn V working properly, and so they used a Saturn IV-B, and they dressed it up cosmetically as a Saturn V. When I am talking about us not going to the moon, that we may have gone in the past 20 years. I'm just saying that the technology in 1969 was not sufficient enough for us to go then. When the shuttle used to go up, it used to take them 3 days to get there. And we used to argue with one of NASA's morons, Jim Ober, and we would say, the Russians can get there in a couple hours. Why did it take us 3 days to get up there? And he would say, oh, well, you don't know anything about orbital mechanics and how difficult it is to line up with this and that and so on and so on. And then we say also when the Russians come back from the ISS, it only takes them 2 hours. Why did it take us 2.5 days? Oh, well, first of all, our astronauts are so tired from all the stuff they had to do on the ISS that we had to give them 2 complete rest periods and this and that and so on. It was really baloney. What they were doing was when the shuttle would go up, it was carrying an immense amount of material for the satellites, the 24 weaponized satellites, and they were distributing that all the way when they were going up. When they get to the space station and they'd open the door, the hatch of the cargo door there, you could see that only half the space was used, and that was never explained. Why didn't they fill it up? The other thing is, every time the shuttle went, the Russians 2 days prior to that would send up a Soyuz, and we managed to get a hold of a cargo manifest, and the majority of it was fruit every time. We have 24 weaponized space stations, which have a number of crew members, maybe as much as 5, plus two stations command and control, which have a number of people in there. There's a lot of people up there, and I estimate that our astronaut corps is 1,000 or more at this time. We're using the Russians to go up as a cover for all the people we're sending up. We have at least 3 different types of rockets that are man capable, and they take off from Kwajalein Island. And there's traffic that goes up there all day long. The Black Knight satellite is a craft that was taken by pictures taken by STS-88, and it has the pictures of this thing, not in the same orbit, but they got good pictures of it. What it is this is a advanced U.S. spacecraft that uses the same technology that Space One that Burt Rutan designed uses, and that's I'm trying to think of what they call a pop-top thermalization. And what it does is it's launched in a rocket. The rocket, when it gets into space, opens up and this thing comes out. This thing can travel all around a different spacecraft, and when it's ready to come back to Earth, the tail comes up and it can actually float down instead of re-entering at 18,000 miles an hour, and thereby defeating any restrictions that were in place regarding the amount of rockets that we can have. And so this was by accident that the STS got these pictures, and the people who were in charge of this secret program, they couldn't get to it fast enough to stop it from coming out. So what they did is they said it was a UFO and named it the Black Knight UFO, but it's obviously Earth-type technology. I have dozens of pictures of it, and there's no way that ETs would have a spacecraft like that.